I really appreciate you being here, and I've been looking forward to this. So, all of us, I'm sure, are space enthusiasts. I came to love space in the way that most of the people I know. It either started with science fiction or Star Trek or something like that. I grew up in the '70s, so it was very influenced for me by Star Trek and the book Late Great Planet Earth, all the influences that we're used to. For those of you that aren't familiar with me and my story, I'm Victor Canada. I work with metallurgical and materials technologies. We're a forensic engineering firm. I personally am not an engineer. My role at the company is operational excellence or quality management, and I am the director of marketing there and communication. So my talk today is called Raise Your Voice, comms, meaning communication, before, during, and after Mars. So the idea is that communication is super important. So what I hope to accomplish in this session is to discuss how you can take your inspiration and use it to inspire others and to drive support for ongoing space operations and exploration. Now, if you'll bear with me for a few minutes, I'll make the case for the need for it, and with a cautionary tale, and then we'll get into the how-to some degree. And I mentioned earlier that I'm going to publish a document that will go into the archive and be associated with this talk that will become available in the near future. It should be available on Monday, I would guess. I'm going to have to talk to the Mars Society about when, once I get it to them. But anyway, so MMT, Metallurgical and Materials Technologies, it's a forensic engineering firm. Think of it like CSI, only instead of a criminal investigation of a body, it's a root cause investigation or failure analysis of a system or, some kind of, metal or material problem that has to be solved. So of course, we're very interested in the materials that are going to be used in getting to Mars, being on Mars, and staying on Mars long term, and going beyond. All right, back to our topic. So I teach communication and digital marketing at LSU, Louisiana State University. So my headquarters is in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. I'm originally from New York, Lower East Side of Manhattan. And how I ended up in Louisiana, that's a whole long story that I won't hit you with right now. But what I want to talk about is, let's start with the cautionary tale. So all of you, I'm sure, are familiar with the space race of the 60s. If you weren't there for it, which I was a child at that point, but if you weren't there for it, you probably know about it. And you know that the space race was an amazing feat where, the United States and other countries were basically competing or racing, mostly between the United States and the Soviets at the time. Were competing to be the first to be able to accomplish something significant in space. And the most significant thing was putting someone on Mars and then getting them back home safely. So that was exciting, inspiring. The entire nation was behind the movement, and don't get me wrong, there was media involved, and if you don't like that, you can call it propaganda, right? And so there was a lot of storytelling that just had the whole nation inspired and very interested in what was going on with this space race. And there was a lot of support for NASA and space because of the government mandate to win the race. And the cautionary tale is this. Immediately after accomplishing the goal of landing on the moon, and returning home safely. It didn't take long after that for NASA to just lose all of its funding. So next thing you know, you've got in the 60s, just a loss of interest. So the people were becoming bored with the topic because there wasn't anything new or exciting for them. It became very, it always was political, of course. There was a political side to it. So with it being a political topic, there were a lot of people who were over it. And world events were causing many people to look around and say, look, I don't know if this is the most important thing we can be working on right now as a people or as a society, as humanity. So the question is, what's to say that that's not going to happen with our efforts to go to Mars? So why do people support anything long term, right? It's because they either think they're going to gain something or some kind of pleasure, some kind of excitement, fulfillment, satisfaction, or they're trying to avoid pain or a fear of loss, right? Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I'm trying not to, get bogged down with too much of that stuff, but we are going to have some Q&A if you want to talk more about that. But you have to remember, space was exciting during the 60s space race because of the awe and wonder of it all. And also fear. There was a huge fear at the time that somebody was going to beat us to it, and whoever beat us to it was going to dominate space and shut us out, and other problems. And some of those fears were probably unreasonable fears, but that's beside the point. It was driving interest. Why is space exciting today? Well, probably for all the same reasons. If we had time, and if I was to ask each of you why you're excited about the current efforts for space exploration, you would probably all fall into two camps. One camp would be the awe and wonder camp, where you're just really excited about what's happening, the fact that space is so vast and so large that you're very curious about what's out there. Is there life out there? Is there what can be found out there? Can we actually move to another planet, right, and live there long term? The other camp that many of you will probably fall into is in some way, shape, or form, you might not like this word, but it's the fear camp. In other words, you're worried about what if something catastrophic happens to our current planet? Wouldn't it be great to have a backup plan, right? And be able to just pick up and move to Mars or some other habitable place. So, all of you probably fall into one of those two broad categories, for different reasons. So if you love the science of it, that to me, that's the awe and wonder group. If you're thinking that an asteroid might hit the planet one day, well, that's the fear group, right? And fear is not a bad thing, just so you guys understand how I see it. Fear is what keeps you from doing really dumb things like walking off the edge of a cliff, okay? Now, so could we lose momentum, the momentum we have now with going to Mars? I mean, there's a lot of excitement currently, but that's among us, right? Like when we look at each other, it doesn't take much for us to just quickly get excited and talk about, especially at this convention, what we're excited about as it relates to space exploration and the science of it and all of that. However, if you were to ask the average person, it could even be someone in your own home, a family member, who maybe they don't have a big why. Why should we go to space? Maybe they're just indifferent about it. And maybe there's quite a few of your coworkers at work or neighbors or people at home in your family who, for them, they have some immediate concerns, be it pandemic related or finance or whatever they're working on, where for them, this whole idea of going to Mars yeah, it's interesting, but it just doesn't sound like something that they would support or go out of their way to make sure that our government is getting behind or whatever it is. So how do we keep from losing the momentum we currently have, and how do we build on it? Well, I think it starts with each of you personally. So let me just kind of give you my thoughts on this. And this is based on the same kind of thinking that I'm teaching as it relates to promoting anything, as it relates to a business or something like that online. In digital marketing, one of the best kept secrets is that really what people want, what the audience wants from you, is for you to be genuine and real. Don't get me wrong, if you're a retail shop, they want discounts too and other things. But the most important thing is what they're looking for is some kind of authenticity that enables them to feel good about doing business with you and wanting to follow whatever your cause is or your effort or what you're doing. Well, the same holds true with this effort or with what we're trying to accomplish as it relates to space or Mars. So here's what I would encourage you to do. And if you're a note-taking person, feel free. A lot of this is going to go into that document I mentioned to you in a little more detail than what I'm getting into now. But let's just touch on a few things. So for you personally, do you even understand your personal why? In other words, if I was to ask you, why are you interested in whatever it is, exploration of Mars or interstellar space or other aspects of all of this? Why are you interested in that science? Why are you interested in all of this? Are you able to articulate that? Do you really understand your own motivation and interest? I would imagine the people in this room probably do. The next part is, have you taken some time to really think through your own personal why and then learn about the bigger whys that inspire you? So for instance, if you're personally very interested in the biology of space and how all of that works, and you have your own understanding of why, have you really thought about and kind of engaged with maybe some of these organizations that are very involved in the biology of space? Have you learned about their why and maybe a bigger why that might be out there beyond what your own thinking is? And my question is, what inspires you, right? The third step is, once you understand your personal why and you have learned about some of the bigger whys, specifically the ones that inspire you, you don't have to learn all the whys. It's the whys that inspire you. And when I'm saying why, I think you guys know I'm saying WHY. Why did that happen? Why are you doing that? So the next step is to share your why. Many people are really good at just quickly sharing something they see, like a funny meme or, maybe this convention, you're sharing it with folks in some way. But consider this. What if you actually, in whatever platform or forum is comfortable for you, consider doing a 2 or 3 minute video of yourself talking about your why. Why are you so passionate about all of this? Or talking about your interest in the bigger why, or talking about what inspires you about what some of these organizations or the science behind it, some of the things that they're doing. That's going to come across very authentically. And when I say share, it can be a video, it can be a blog, an article you wrote, and you don't have to do it on your own. You can find someone who can help you edit it or make it maybe more readable or more visually acceptable. But my whole point isn't digging into the details of specifically which platform and how you're going to do that. I'll answer some of those questions if that's what you want to get into in the Q&A. But my point is, have you done that? And if you haven't, then let's put that on your list of things to do. So for instance, let's say there's 10,000 people at this conference, and all 10,000 of them, in whatever platform and method they have, they start publishing their own personal why about space, and they start publishing what inspires them from some of the organizations that they're interested in. And they're publishing these genuine and authentic things about what inspires them about space and what these people are doing, these organizations. And when you start doing that, when 10,000 people are doing that, the algorithms of these platforms online and search engines, they're going to start helping us to distribute that information out there. And next thing you know, you'll catch, a single mom who's super busy and hasn't thought about space except when her 3-year-old or 4-year-old is talking about some TV show that they watched or something their friend said. And now all of a sudden they're thinking, wow, that inspires me too, or I hadn't thought about that. And now you have a new person who is in some way supportive of the endeavor to explore space and to do more science in space. So another piece is, once you've started sharing your own personal why and the things that inspire you, again, that can be videos or articles, posts, whatever you're comfortable with doing, or getting help from someone to do. Now you can start searching out other companies, organizations, individuals who maybe share your why or share your interest or in some way inspire you. And here's what's interesting. A talking head is interesting if they're saying something that interests you. But what's more interesting than a talking head is a panel or a group of people or two people having a conversation. So next thing you know, you can start, if you want to think of it in a formal way, you can interview people who you would love to meet and get to know, and people who are in some way inspiring to you. You can interview them and ask them about their work. Well, when you do that and then publish whatever it is you spoke to them about with their permission, well, now you've created more opportunities for engagement to gain supporters for them. We're not talking about worrying about who gets the credit and that sort of thing. It's about the bigger picture of keeping or building momentum for space exploration and Mars. And then the last piece is getting into a regular routine of engagement and sharing. So, and what I'm talking about there is getting into some kind of weekly rhythm where 2 days a week you go on, you might search to see if anyone's talking about the topic that inspires you out there, and whoever they are, using it as an opportunity to meet someone new and message them back and engage with what they're posting and sharing and talking to them, sending them links of things that you're interested in. And, who knows, you might make a friend, but in addition to that, that engagement is going to create in the algorithm value, what we call a social currency, that enables other organizations to be able to find you more easily, or that sort of thing. So, so those are the steps. So understand your personal why, learn about the bigger picture, the bigger why that your why is part of, share your why with others, search for companies, organizations, and individuals who inspire you and interview them or talk to them, write about them. And then get into a regular routine of engagement and sharing. And of course, you can just continuously do all of these. Now, if you're in this talk because you're actually with an organization and you're saying to yourself, oh, well, what I came here to learn is how I can promote my cause or my organization. Well, guess what? Just take everything I just said, and instead of thinking of it as an individual who's a fan of space exploration, trying to get more people inspired, now think of it like, I'm a fan of my organization. I'm inspired by my organization, and I want other people to be inspired too. So now it's the same. You understand your personal why, Why are you in this organization? Why are you the founder? Why do you love the work that you do? What is the bigger picture, the bigger why that you contribute to? And then start sharing that in a very personal way or authentic way. Search for other companies, organizations, and individuals who could work together with you, and then get into a regular routine of engagement and sharing on these platforms, so that you can, further, in essence, you're promoting your cause or your organization, but you're doing it in a very authentic and personally inspiring way, instead of just doing an ad or a commercial for your organization. So, and of course, for organizations, it's great to talk about your purpose, behind the scenes, people stories, all that is wonderful. All right, so let me start concluding now and make sure there's at least room for a few questions. So in conclusion, I would strongly encourage you, hope you, and to inspire you to communicate now, regularly, keep communicating, help to not lose momentum. We have momentum now, but let's keep that going. Now's the best time to just continue to grow and build your tribe. In other words, find all the people who love what you love, not just space in general or Mars in general, but the ones who are specifically into your thing, whatever that is. And then you're putting that out there and helping people to be inspired about that. All right, we have a few minutes left, I think. So let's look, I can talk about this all day, to be honest, and get into a lot of detail, but I don't want to put you to sleep with that. I'm not sure how the questions work, if the volunteer host reads them, or how does it work?
Oh, yeah, there's a question from Doug, and should I read it out to you?
Yeah, sure. And that way
Okay.
everybody else gets to
So,
hear it too.
okay, yeah. So the question from Doug says, engagement-based social media mostly promotes outrage, outrageousness, and fear, often unfounded or exaggerated. How can
Right.
scientific nuisance, well-cited research, and legitimate facts compete for visibility?
That's a great question. And it's a real challenge because, especially on the big platforms that are, the older ones that are, for lack of a better way to say it, popular. Um, a lot of folks are on there and talking about some of the craziest things and things that just really don't matter. Here's the thing, and I hate to be this guy who's going to say to you, if you build it, they will come, because nobody wants to hear that. But Doug, I got to tell you, what you're not looking for, a million people who are super interested in your, real, authentic, scientific, and very important thing. I would probably be very interested in it. Probably some of the people in this room would be very interested in it, but the masses may not be interested in it unless you can tie it in to their daily life or something in their future that is very real. And it doesn't have to be fear-based, but the exercise for us is to take this very interesting thing that only a handful of people would probably really love to sit down and talk to you about for an hour or two. How do you take that and then get to the point where you're able to tie it in again to that single mom who's worried about her finances and her job and raising her child? How do you tie it into that person? And you can, because when you really get down to your personal why, that's where the secret is. Your personal why is very interesting and has something to do with humanity. And that's how we can kind of get together. Okay, sorry it took so long. Go ahead. I feel like
Okay.
we're just hurting for time here. Go ahead.
Yeah, we have another 5 minutes, so I think I can
Okay.
read out the next. I don't know if it's a question or what, but
Yeah, go
Eric
ahead.
says we could have ugly wars about hydroponic versus aeroponic vegetable growing on Mars.
Oh, I love that.
Okay,
Yes.
and then
Go ahead.
yeah, and
Well,
then
just my comment about that is yes, and let's just try to no matter how ugly someone's being about it, you can choose not to join the ugly part and just go try to have a real conversation. And I think the minute someone feels like you're not attacking them, it could diffuse the situation. All right, go ahead. You won't
Okay.
win everybody over, just saying.
Okay. So then there's we need a hashtag that everyone can agree on.
Oh, I love
What?
that. So I don't know. Momentum for space. I don't know. Y'all think of one and let's pass it around and let's see what
Definitely.
resonates.
Definitely.
Yeah,
So
I would love that.
we have a few more minutes. So if anyone else has any questions, they can put it up in the chat section and I can read them out to Victor.
Yeah, sure. And, while that's going on, one of the things that I've learned is that, when someone's being ugly, especially in a digital platform, don't get me wrong, if there's a difference between just being, just completely disrespectful and horrible versus just disagreeing and maybe disagreeing a little too passionately. For the ones that are passionate about disagreeing with you, if you take a moment, first of all, don't feel like you're going to lose ground by learning more about their position. Instead of trying to defend your position, just jump right in and say, oh, that's interesting. Tell me more about what you're saying. Half the time, the negative people will talk themselves out of their position while they're trying to explain it. But for the other half, when that doesn't happen, if you give them a chance to be heard, then that's when you take your turn to be heard. Just make sure you've thoroughly heard them, okay? And they know it. Once you've done that, then the humanity opens up and they're able to start talking with you more. It might take a while because people aren't used to that nowadays. Thank you, Doug. I appreciate that. He's saying
Okay.
it's good advice. Yeah, I appreciate that.